Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. We are in the 11.1 PTR patch, and Shamans are getting a lot of attention with this class update, and I wanted to do a deep dive on the new animations and the new builds and the new playstyles that are likely going to be emerging as a result of these changes. And if you want to make sure that you're staying up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, then make sure to smash that subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated. Now, Enhancement Shaman is basically receiving an encyclopedia of changes with a bunch of new animations as well, and an emphasis on kind of simplifying the class as well as reducing a couple of pain points for it. So one of the main abilities for Shaman that is getting removed is Ancestral Guidance. You're going to notice that on your class tree, Ancestral Guidance is just gone. They are compensating this change by buffing Healing Stream Totem by like 100% or some massive number. Now, I don't know if that will be enough to actually make it viable in this case, and losing Ancestral Guidance is going to be losing a significant amount of party healing, whether you're in PvP or PvE, so it's going to be felt like a very significant loss if the Healing Stream nerf is not compensated for that. But I think it's also a part of their project of trying to reduce the number of keybinds for Enhancement Shaman or Shaman in general. The only thing that I would argue with that is Ancestral Guidance was often just kind of like macroed into your highest damage cooldown or highest healing window anyways. So you're basically just losing a lot of efficacy there, but they seem to really hate Nature's Vigil and Vampiric Embrace and Ancestral Guidance, you know, for multiple patches now, and it's been part of their goal to reduce that type of hybrid healing and really focus in on, like, if you're going to heal, you need to be pressing a healing ability, and this way they can make healers have more impact in any given content. So I think that it's likely a healthy change for the game, but it's going to be one that might be felt initially as pain before they can address other classes that still have these types of mechanics and bring everything in line and bring everything more to a balanced state. Now, one of their main goals for Enhancement Shaman on the class tree or spec tree is to bring more of your physical damage out. So they're targeting talents that are going to be, you know, previously making your magic damage increase, like Elemental Spirits. It's now also going to be increasing your physical damage. They don't like how basically it's all top heavy onto your Maelstrom spenders and your actual physical abilities don't deal that much damage. So I'm playing kind of a Stormbringer, kind of Storm Strike spam build at the moment to try and give a go on this and see like how much of my damage is actually physical abilities and how much of it isn't. So we got new animations on Crash Lightning. You could see me just kind of like explode on the ground there. That's one of the first new animations that is coming in this patch, but I think a lot of the new animations focus more around Totemic and some of the fire builds. But right here, Crash Lightning, it definitely feels a lot better to press with that animation than the one that it was previously. But we go into Ascendance form, easily the most fun ability right now for Enhancement Shaman. This build that I'm playing right now is really good for kind of beginner Enhancement Shamans, where you just pop Ascendance and spam one button, which is just Storm Strike, and you just do a bunch of damage, and you just shoot out a bunch of Chain Lightnings, and you're feeling pretty good. We got a Tempest proc, we're going to shoot that out. We're running Voltaic Blaze, you get the Flame Shocks up with AoE. This is just a really straightforward, kind of simple build that I've been playing on my retail Shaman a lot, and it seems like this build is kind of still going to transfer over and feel pretty decent with patch 11.1 with some new animations onto Crash Lightning. And I think Ice Strike as well has seen some improvements as well to its overall kind of incorporation into the kit, which is nice. So this build is kind of just staying about the same with a couple of new animations added to them, but this is just the Storm Strike build. When we look at other builds like Totemic, you're going to notice that Primordial Wave has been completely changed. So Primordial Wave now is just like an AoE. It's just going to blast all targets affected by your Flame Shock for 900,000 damage, and Primordial Wave will still generate you 5 stacks of Maelstrom Weapon. Splintered Elements is still the same, granting you haste when you use it. And then Primordial Storm, which is a new ability, Primordial Wave will transform into a single-use Primordial Storm. And for 15 seconds after its cast, you would devastate nearby enemies for a bit of AoE damage, which is contributed from multiple elements. So again, going to play into sort of like this elementalist style of build for enhancement. So let's just take a look at some of those animations. I think they also updated the fire side of the tree quite a lot, so I'm curious to see what a lot of this looks like. I think they updated Fire Nova to give you a bit more of like an up kind of animation as opposed to kind of like this explosion out AoE animation. So I just want to see what that looks like as well. This might not be the most ideal build, obviously, for this running through. I'm just doing this really quickly. They've updated Totemic as well, and this is one of the pain points that they've improved. They did nerf Oversurge, but overall, I think that Totemic is going to feel a lot better for enhancement as well as resto. Curious to see what the Searing Totem damage is now as well, because I believe that they buffed that. But they've focused in on Totemic by making it easier to move your totem around. Previously, you needed Totemic projection to be able to move it. You're basically not going to need that anymore. But you can already see like the key binding space gets a little bit more dense when you're running this Primordial Wave build. When you're running Totemic, you have to add the Totemic totem onto the bar. You got to add in the Primordial Wave as well. Things get a little bit more messy when we do that. So when we go into that side, so you know, take it with a grain of salt. I'm trying to like just get this a little bit better for like a type of fire style build, but I really just want to see the animations. I think a lot of this is gonna, you know, get tuned because Enhancement Shaman is doing a truck ton of damage, like an absolute absurd amount of damage at the moment in PvE. So my guess is that it's probably gonna get nerfed. But this is the new Fire Nova animation. So when we press Shift 5 here, boom, shoots a little fire plume up into the air as opposed to kind of AoEing around. And then let's get a bunch of flame shocks out so we can test Primordial Wave here. We'll try and get 3 of them onto all these targets. And you can see when you use Totemic and you put the totem down, actually I thought that they updated this so that you'd be able to move it, but you still have to use projection. It looks like, am I not, is there a hero talent ability that I needed to take in order to move this thing around? Because I remember reading this and it said that you were able to move it around freely now. But it looks like that is not the case. I mean, I'm just going to Alt-Tab over and just make sure because this is really weird to me. When I read this, it said that we would be able to move it around. So where is it, dude? Totemic. When Surging Totem is replaced with a relocation spell that summons your Searing Totem nearby, the spell has a 6-second cooldown and does not trigger the global cooldown. Is that just bugged? Because that is not what happened with mine. Let's see this again. It's supposed to replace it. I don't see that happening right now. Hopefully that gets fixed. Maybe it's just a bug right now. Obviously, this is still like really early PTR, but I think Surging Totem, when it's on cooldown, was supposed to be replaced. You're supposed to be able to move it around. And if they can actually get that, it's going to be a lot nicer. So you don't need to take Totemic projection in order to move that totem. But Primordial Wave now is going to blast them with AoE. And then we get Primordial Storm, which is going to just give a big Sunder AoE out with all 3 elements, which looks really cool. Let's just look at the damage breakdown for that one. Like Primordial Storm, how much did that actually hit the target for? So we got Primordial Wave, so it hit about 900k, which is what it says. Primordial Lightning hit for 1.3 million. So we hit, so Primordial Frost, Primordial Lightning, and Primordial Fire, I assume, are all part of this. So when we press that button, we hit for 500,000 damage, plus 900,000 damage, plus 1.3 million, and I didn't really have everything set up perfectly there, so that was like a 3 million hit on Primordial Wave, or Primordial Storm, basically. That is going to add a lot of extra AoE damage into the mix, no matter what you're doing. If we have elementals out, and if this was running like a little bit more of an optimal build, this thing probably would have, that thing is going to hit really hard. That thing is going to hit monstrously hard. Okay, this, I think Enhancement Shaman is going to be really well off with this patch. It's going to be really well off. We also saw an update to the animation of Lightning Bolt, so you can see that. It charges the lightning from the ground. I don't know why it's pulling lightning out of the earth instead of the sky, but we're pulling lightning out of the earth, and we're just lobbing out this Lightning Bolt. Seems like the travel time feels a little bit slower on it, but I do like the cast animation for it. You're probably going to notice that a lot more as Elemental as opposed to Enhancement Shaman. But this Primordial Storm ability looks really cool. This thing looks really awesome as far as just overall AoE damage and the animation on it. Kind of makes me feel like Wake of Ashes, except it's like a Shaman version of Wake of Ashes. And it seems like it hits really hard. New lightning bolt animations are going to look sick when they're coming through. Unfortunately, they pruned one of our PP talents, though. I honestly forgot the name of it, but it was the one where you lightning bolted, or where you storm strike and it shot out a chain lightning, or zapped a nearby target with lightning. It's kind of sad to see that talent go, because it was a significant amount of damage for the Stormbringer build. But they did, it does look like they removed that. So it's a little bit unfortunate on that side. But I think as an Enhancement Shaman player, you have a lot more to explore. You have a lot more to explore as far as like build variety and build options, and which elements you want to combine together, new animations to play with and fiddle with. Your performance is really high, at least as far as damage output, when it comes to PvE. And PvP, probably still going to have very similar pain points with mobility, kind of composition limitations, but I feel like you were still doing pretty decent even in PvP prior to that point. So Enhancement Shaman looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. I think that this seems like a lot to explore. This Primordial Storm thing looks really cool. I think that I'm definitely going to be switching to Totemic when this actually goes live, just because this thing looks cool. It does a ton of damage. Nice little Wake of Ashes for Enhancement Shaman, basically. But it seems like they really wanted to focus in on build variety. I don't know, did this save my first breakdown? I wanted to see like how much of my damage is physical damage, you know? So Storm Strike was hitting for, you know, 1 million damage hit. My Wind Fury attacks were doing significantly high, 10% of my damage. This seems like it's a lot, you know, their goal was to split physical and magic damage. So at least with the Storm Strike build, this seems a lot more evenly split. As opposed to being like top heavy. We see some specs where they have like 30% of their damage at the top end. And then when we were running the AoE build, hopefully we're going to be able to get that one as well. So with the Surging Totem, melee kind of falls off a bit, maybe not as hard. You know, it's still holding strong, like 6% auto attack damage, 6% on Storm Strike. But this is kind of like a more of an elemental build, so I'm not surprised. A bit surprising to see Crash Lightning actually hit so hard for like 600k. Seems like a lot. But this is more like an elemental build, so I'm not really surprised to see this one come a little bit lower as far as, you know, auto attacks to nature damage, whereas the Storm Strike build being more physical focus. I think that makes sense, but just the breakdown looks better. I feel like specs where it's like one of your abilities is 30-50% of your damage ends up feeling like really cheesy, whereas this build's, I mean, it's almost completely equal in that sense with how it's distributing its damage out to multiple spells. So it seems like those goals that they wanted to hit with Enhancement Shaman are definitely hit. Now for things like Resto Shaman, they're trying to bring down some of your ability bloat. Resto Shaman, you know, they basically deleted your Mana Tide Totem and then they incorporated it into Healing Tide Totem. But unfortunately, it's on a choice node with Spirit Walker's Tidal Totem, so you're gonna lose some instant healing. You have to choose between mana efficiency versus extra instant burst healing, which I do think is a fair decision when you're making a decision, but inherently will feel like a nerf. You know, especially initially, this is going to feel like a nerf, whether you feel like you need the direct healing because you're struggling to keep up with healing versus you need the mana. It's going to be tough. I think it's going to be tough as far as that. But with Totemic, I think if they do the same change where you can relocate the totem yourself, that's going to make it feel way better. I really think it's going to feel way better if you're able to move this more actively without needing to have projection. Or if you have projection, you can move it around twice as much, because the main problem with it is that it's just so stationary, and there's so many AoE effects on the ground right now in PvE, and then in PvP, fights are always constantly moving, that if you can't move this thing as active as the fight is, then it becomes really difficult to do a lot with. The other thing too could be just like making it a sticky totem. You know, you stick it to a player, so you know a player is going to be in the the mass majority of the group, and it just follows that player around instead of just kind of going on the ground. Could be another way of trying to make this more effective. You could do that with Earthen Wall Totem as well. I think a lot of players, at least Shaman players, would be really happy with something like that. You guys are also losing Spirit Walkers or Ancestral Guidance, so you're going to feel that as a bit of a nerf. But again, the Healing Stream buff is in there to compensate for you. So just a little bit of a keybind reduction for Resto Shaman, which unfortunately probably will feel like a bit of a nerf, I think, at least initially. When we look at Elemental Shaman, you're getting some lightning bolt animations. It's similar to Enhancement Shaman. I think you're going to probably notice the lightning bolt changes a little bit more as well. You guys are losing Ancestral Guidance here in this tree at the same time, as well as for every other spec of Shamans. There's nothing really new there. We got Lava Burst. We got lightning bolt animations. Trying to get this Primordial Wave going here so we can see what it looks like as Elemental, but I'm assuming it's just going to be the same. So it's the same type of animation, except now you don't shoot out that like spam amount of lava bursts. So your burst damage is probably going to get, you know, feel a lot lower, at least with those like Primordial Wave builds and those little small windows of time. But I think they wanted you to focus in more on like a Stormbringer build and get more lightning out of your damage. So I do wonder if like Stormbringer at all is going to be viable. It's a little bit more hardcast centered, but if we've lost a lot of damage on our Primordial Wave, then it might end up just being the case that we need to do it. Doesn't look like we got any compensation with Primordial Wave. Like we don't get any like the Primordial Wave Storm like Enhancement Shaman, unfortunately. So it's a little bit sad there. They updated Ghost Wolf as well to make it, you know, less visually cluttered or something. I don't really see any difference in it in here when I'm looking at it right now. But I think the big winner for this patch is Enhancement Shaman. The keybind reduction hopefully is going to feel good across all three Shaman specs. I feel like Shaman as a class as a whole is one that definitely needed to have some of its keybinds reduced, because it was quite overwhelming, the amount of keybinds that Shaman has, no matter what spec you're really playing, except maybe if you're playing a Stormbringer Enhancement Shaman. The rest of them just feel like they have so many keybinds to be able to kind of filter through in between. But I just wanted to give you guys this update. Check out the Shaman, show you some of the new animations, show you guys some of the new builds that are coming through for it, my thoughts on them initially, what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses for them. And other than that, thank you guys very much for tuning into the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.